Now let's go over nested iteration, or nested loops. A nested loop is a loop that's in the body of another loop. And that inner loop must complete iterations before the outer loop can continue and complete its iterations. Okay, let's look at a sample problem and see if we can use, basically we can use inner and outer loops in using nested iteration to solve this problem. Well, the problem states, using loops, how can we print this to the console? And it's basically the letter O 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times in 5 columns, and then 1, 2, 3 rows. How can we print this to the console? Well, to tackle problems like these, it's often helpful to just look at one section. So let's look at this part right here. This looks pretty simple. I think we could write a for loop to print just 5 O's to the console. It would go something like this. For, and I encourage you to pause the video and try to think of it yourself before you watch me write the loop. But once you've done that, you would write int I equals 0. For the test condition, we know that since we need 5 O's printed to the screen, I would be less than 5. And for the change, we can simply increment I. So what this loop would run exactly 5 times, which is perfect because we need to print 5 O's to the screen. So each time the loop is executed, system.out.print O. And there we have it. We could successfully printed this to the console. But now we have to do this 3 times. This exact action that we have here, we have to do this x3. Well, we can just put another loop around this loop. Think about it. Since we need to do this 3 times, we can just put another for loop that has, let's say, a different variable. Let's call the variable x. Since we cannot use the same variable into nested loops, that causes conflicts. Let's call it x. Int x equals 0, and we want this to occur 3 times. So remember, we already have the logic to print 5 O's to the screen. Now we need the logic to print 3 rows. So in the test condition, we'd write x is less than 3. And in the change condition, we'd write x plus plus. This would ensure that the loop runs exactly 3 times. Okay, so what is occurring here? This loop, which is running 3 times, and we have this loop, which is running 5 times. And there's one line of code that's being executed in both of these loops, and it's this. System.out.print, and then this string. So effectively, if this loop is running 3 times and the loop inside is running 5 times, this statement is being executed a total of 15 times, since 3 times 5 is 15. For each of these for iterations of the outer loop, the inner loop iterates 5 times. So 5 times 3 would be 15. So we're not quite there at this, but we've gotten pretty close. Instead of printing 5, now we print 15, and so on. We print 15 O's to the screen, but they're in a single line. That's the problem. We don't want the O's in the single line. Instead, we want them to go to the next line whenever they reach every 5 O's. We can add a line of code inside the outer loop, inside this loop, that isn't inside this loop. So we can add a line inside the red colored loop, and we can say system.out.print. Well, this will get us to our desired solution. But what did it do? Let's trace the loop. Every time this loop goes in, let's say it goes in for the first time, the inner loop is executed 5 times exactly. So 5 O's are printed to the screen. Now, a system.out.print occurs. So the cursor is moved to the next line. Now the loop occurs again. The outer loop this time occurs again. The inner loop occurs 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the system.out.print again occurs again. Basically, after every 5 O's are printed to the screen, the system.out.print makes sure that our cursor moves to the next line, since it followed directly after the inner loop.